Tell us a little bit about your lessons with Big Walter.
Well, I was in this high school youth group, and the high school youth group decided to have a party, but this was a kind of a cool high school youth group. They were all listening to blues, and one guy said, well, I know how we can get a real blues band. You go down to Jazz Record Mart in Chicago and talk to the Bob Kester down there, who owned the record store and also owned Delmark Records.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, yeah, let's have a party. And, all threw in a little money. I think we had $200 or something. And
it's a good pay these days, yeah.
Yeah. And we got Johnny Young, Big Walter Horton, and a drummer to come out to play in the church basement. and the album Chicago the Blues Today had just come out, the 3-volume set. So I'd heard Walter Horton. I couldn't believe we were going to get to see this guy live. And there he was live playing incredible harmonica, just amazing stuff. And I heard him tell someone else he gave lessons. He'd give a lesson. I thought, wow, take a lesson from Walter Horton. This was in October. It took me till April or May to get my nerve up to call him. But I heard him tell this other kid, oh yeah, you can get in touch with me through Bob Kester at Jazz Record Mart. So I went down there and said, I want to get a lesson from Walter Horton. He said, well, the way to do it is to call Lincoln's grocery store at the corner of 39th and Indiana in Chicago South Side. And he hangs out there, so just keep calling Lincoln's grocery store until you get him. So I did. Is Walter Horton there? No. Is Walter Horton there? No. Is Walter Horton there? No. Is Walter Horton there? Yeah, he's right here. So I arranged to meet him at Lincoln's grocery store on a Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon, I guess it was. And so I went down there and I met him at the store, and he wanted to be paid right away before the lesson. So I think it was $10, which at the time was the price of 3 Marine Band harmonicas. So it's just for perspective. And or 2 LPs. So I paid him the money. He bought a bottle of some brown beverage. I don't know which one it was. And we walked 2 blocks down the street and up 3 flights of stairs to his little apartment on Indiana Avenue. And he sat down on one side of his kitchen table, and I sat down on the other side of the kitchen table. And he said, what do you want to know? And then I said probably the most stupid thing I've ever said in my life. I said, I want to learn how to play like Junior Wells. Which was... and he just rolled his eyes,
I can pretty much imagine that face, yeah.
Yeah, I was young and foolish. I didn't know. And, just for all of you folks out there, Walter Horton was, probably 20 years older than Junior Wells and had been around a lot longer. And Junior Wells to him was this upstart, And they were both great harmonica players, but he just kind of rolled his eyes. Anyway, I knew not to say that again. But he sat down and he said, well, play this. You do it. So, give me this look. No. You do it. That's how the whole lesson went.
Yeah.
He never said, inhale on hole 2, The only thing he let me know was what harmonica he was playing.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, he never said anything about inhale, bend, draw, and, whole number, half steps, and nothing. It was all, he'd play something, and I'd try to repeat it. The first lesson was pretty rough. so I went home and I practiced for 4 months or something. But I listened to his records, because I had Chicago the Blues Today, which, by the way, is now on CDs. You can get it with Junior Wells is on there, and James Cotton, and Big Walter Horton, Charlie Musselwhite on one cut. Great stuff. So I'd play along with that. I'd play along with the new Paul Butterfield record, which #1, the first one out. Played along with Sonny Terry, just played and played and played. Used to ride my bike, play harmonica, and walk to school, play harmonica. Between classes in high school, play harmonica. At the grocery store, play harmonica. I was known as, there's the kid that plays harmonica. So. But I just kept at it, and went back a few months after the first lesson and took a second lesson, and I learned a lot more by then. So he'd sit down, same thing, call Lincoln's grocery store, set up a time, meet him, pay him in advance, go up to the kitchen table. He'd be drinking his beverage of choice, whatever it was. And, but then, he'd play this. And so, all right. I was getting closer. I didn't have that tone. His tone was huge. His hands were huge. And tall guy and big chest. When he held a harmonica, his fingers went past the end of the harmonica. His hands were, another 2 inches taller and another 2 inches wider than mine. Just massive hands. But bigger than that.
I understand.
But he was playing this deep, amazing stuff. So that lesson went the same way, but a little better, and I went home and practiced another, 6 months or so. Went back for one more lesson, and by this time, I'd really improved quite a bit. It was a year since the first lesson, and that's right. If you keep practicing, you'll improve. And so went back, and by this time, he was showing me really cool stuff, like. These turnarounds, and it's cool stuff, And at the end of that lesson, the guy, knocked on the door. One of his buddies, this neighborhood friend, came by, and the lesson was just wrapping up, and he had me play for the guy. He said, "Hey, I want you to hear this little blonde kid here." I was probably 19 at the last lesson. And so I played for the guy, and he said, "Oh, yeah." And Walter was digging it, and he said, the guy said, "Well, Walter, did you teach him how to do that?" And he said, "Yep."
Full credit.
Yeah. And I said, "Well, but I mean, could he play anything before he got here? Did you teach him all of that?" And he said, "Well, he could play, but he was playing one more shit." Walter was a kind of surly guy. He was a great guy. He was a character. But anyway, I just about a month after that, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and the whole vibe of Chicago got. This was a rough neighborhood that Walter lived in, but it was rough enough so that I wouldn't venture into that neighborhood alone. Because it was rough. It was rougher.
Mm-hmm.
It was rougher than rough. So I didn't go down there for a while, and then soon after that, I moved away from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Started hitchhiking around, and I always had a harmonica with me. It's a good thing to have when you're in the middle of Iowa and there's no traffic, you know, so you can play some harmonica. Get stuck at the side of the road. But I kept playing and didn't see Walter Horton then for a few years, but then he started 1972, the Blind Pig Cafe in Ann Arbor, Michigan opened. The same guys that later opened Blind Pig Records, but they started with a bar in Ann Arbor. And they were big blues lovers, of course, and they knew that there's these blues bands in Chicago that would go to Detroit to play shows on the weekends, and they could stop by the Blind Pig and pick up a job on a Thursday or a Monday, and so the bands were into that. So what a scene. We were getting Johnny Shines and Roosevelt Sykes and Big Walter Horton and Sun Seals. And it was great scene. And I'd go down when Walter Horton would come. I'd go down and he remembered me, and the last set he'd let me sit in. So
Nice.
it was always fun. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that with us.
You betcha.